Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay, here we go. Happy Saturday, everybody. Should we do a roll call? A roll call. I'm going to bring that back. Roll call. Betty Clark, Ruth Lang. Here? Are you here? Dark Side, Truth and Justice, Scales of Justice. Hello, hello, hello. So we got news that the O'Keefe family, so, now we're talking about Karen Read and the civil trial. So there's been a criminal trial. There's been 2 criminal trials. And I'm going to shout this out to the Free Karen Reads, the Karen Read supporters. There's been 2 criminal trials. Okay. The first criminal trial, we got a hung jury. That's like a draw. That's not a win. All the Free Karen readers. 2 juries acquitted her. No, that's not an acquittal. It's a draw. No one wins. No one wins in a draw. Okay? It's you have to start all over again. So then we had a second criminal trial, the Karen Read case. And in that case, Judge Cannoni let an entire huge mass of Karen Read supporters surround the courthouse as they were deliberating. And the verdict came, which acquitted her of all the serious charges. I mean, when you listen to the jurors, you can hear the crowd come in to the actual courtroom. So I bring that up because it has a lot to do with what I'm going to talk today and my reservations about Bibi Fell being added to Karen Read's civil trial. So now we have a civil trial. So while Karen Read was trying the criminal charges, her victim, so if you don't know, Karen Read was accused of running over her police officer boyfriend. He had been trying to leave her. John O'Keefe is a police officer in Massachusetts. And she is accused of leaving him on a lawn to die in Massachusetts, the second worst storm that Massachusetts has ever seen. So that will give you just a little bit of background. But the O'Keefe family, which included John O'Keefe, his sister Kristen, died of a brain tumor, and he took parental duties over for his sister because his sister's husband, after she died 3 months later of a heart attack. So there were 2. They orphaned 2 children, Kaylee and Patrick, and in that, the O'Keefe family, including Kaylee, are suing for wrongful death. So this is a civil trial, very much like O.J. Simpson, where the Goldman family sued for wrongful death. So in this case, Karen Reed's freedom isn't on the line. The way our civil courts work is money's on the line, and the bar of evidence is much lower. So it just has to be more likely so than not. And we saw in the first hearing for this case, let me pull that up. Hold on, I didn't think I was going to pull it up, but now I think I really should pull it up because it really gives you such a view of what it looked like when Karen Reed appeared in court with 7 lawyers on her team. And many of these lawyers are volunteering. This is money that you just, this is advertising that you just like can't buy for your legal services because there's so many eyes on this case and so many fanatic eyes, so many people who will not only recognize that you're representing Karen Reed, but will love you for it. You know, Karen Reed is like so many of these killers and accused killers and convicted killers have a cult of personality around them. So hold on one second. Let me just get to I know exactly what part I'm looking for is right at the beginning. So I think I called her lawyer Siegelman. I just like to make a correction. It's Seligson, I think. I actually we'll hear it. Hold on. Here's the lawyers. Here's her lawyers. Damon Seligson. What is it? Now I'm forgetting it as I'm pulling this up. Okay, hold on. So here's like the look that we got. The O'Keefe family has 2 lawyers representing them, and Karen Reed has 7, count them, 7 lawyers representing her, including Hollywood Alan Jackson, the king lying lawyer himself. Mr. Fraudster, my opinion. Here we go.
All before the court is 2483 CV 692. This is the case of Paul O'Keefe and Alia versus C&C Hospitality, LLC, DBA, CF McCarthy. That Alia case is called for status and for Rule 12 motions. Counsel, please introduce yourself for the record, beginning with plaintiff's counsel. And if you could state the party you represent as well, thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Attorney Mark Diller on behalf of the plaintiffs.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Dan Buck on behalf of the plaintiffs.
So civil trial, there's no prosecutor. This is just, you have the plaintiffs and the defendants. Karen Reed is defendant, as we found out in this hearing. She wants to be both. She wants to make a case where she's both a plaintiff and a defendant. So she wants to marry in a bunch of cases where she sues a host of other people just to confuse the issue and deflect attention away from herself. So we have 2 lawyers, not flashy, not in Hollywood suits for those listening on podcast. One bald lawyer with glasses, another, both, middle-aged, 2 middle-aged lawyers, nothing flashy about them, representing the O'Keefe family. All this is going to come into my worry about adding Bibi Fell into this mix. Okay. I don't mean to be I'm not being defeatist. I just want to raise these issues in an effort to call these issues up in hopes that someone will hear on the O'Keefe, maybe the O'Keefe family or someone who knows the O'Keefe family, and just make them aware that this just reminds me so much of some of the things that were done in the criminal trial. I'll talk about it.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Damon Seligson on behalf of the defendant, Karen Reed.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Yes, Seligson, Damon Seligson, the South African bald lawyer. So that's one. Can we do a count here?
Charles Waters for defending Karen Reed. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Alan Jackson on behalf of Ms. Reed.
Good afternoon.
Did someone say Alan Jackson's name? Did someone say Alan Jackson? It's like, does anyone else have the Alan Jackson song going on in their head? I do. Oh, darn it. I took it down. I think after the criminal trial, oh no, I didn't remove it from my assets. Hold on 1 second. Should I just play like a minute of it if I have it? Let's see. I'll do it in a minute. Oh, darn it. Why did I take that down? All right. Never mind. All right, back to this. What are we on? 2 or 3 or 4? 4 lawyers?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Erin Rosenberg, also on behalf of Mr. Reed.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. William Keppel on behalf of Karen Reed.
Got it. Okay,
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Christopher George on behalf of the defendant, Karen Reed.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Marissa Palladini on behalf of Karen Reed.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. David Hassett on behalf of Waterfall Bar and Grill.
Okay. I'm sorry, did you say the waterfall?
Waterfall, yes.
Got it.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Can I get it also on behalf of Waterfall Bar and Grill?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Lincoln Rose on behalf of the defendant, CF McCarthy's.
Good afternoon. Okay.
So I'm not including that. Those are separate lawyers. They're defending the Waterfall Bar and Grill, which is being brought in for over-serving Karen Reed. Karen Reed was convicted of driving drunk.
That's all the counselors. Good afternoon, folks, and welcome everyone to the event.
So that's what it looked like, and so we always think of like negatives, like, well, Karen Reed has this huge legal team, but you have to remember that they're going in front of a jury. And there's a disadvantage of having a huge legal team with Hollywood, Alan Jackson, in that, you're clearly you're not the underdog, right? So you have an advantage being the underdog, having 2 lawyers. You have to look like, I'm here to represent the O'Keefe family, do the right thing, who've been victimized in this. Not like I'm coming in for the money. I'm not coming in to increase my career, to improve my career, to get my face on TV. All those things the jurors could consider or could develop a bias one way or the other. The positive side of having Bibi Fell on the team is she's very experienced. But I've learned more about Bibi Fell, but this is also, she's very experienced in this kind of litigation. She's been practicing since 2004, but she's from San Diego. Let me see if I can switch to the interview with Bibi where she talks a little bit about herself. This is such a funny podcast. This is called the She Said What show she was on. I've watched more things with Bibi Fell and listened to more podcasts with Bibi Fell in the past. So here she's asked what her secret is to looking so young. She's kind of a glamazon super lawyer. So you're bringing in this like glamazon super lawyer into it. You kind of lose a little bit of the underdog element, and she may have a lot of experience in the courtroom, but this is a unique, I don't know if it's unique. There may have, apparently in Chicago, they do it all the time. They have pre-trial innocence fraud campaigns, but I don't know about San Diego, how much she has fought an innocence fraud campaign. So it's not that you're just fighting this in court. If you go naively into this, thinking that the only thing you have to do is win this by your arguments in court, you're fighting the court of public opinion. You're fighting, you have to find a jury that hasn't been touched by this campaign. And you have to know that what innocence fraud is really what you're fighting is organized crime. And they bring that crime into the courtroom. And there's all sorts of dirty tricks that you have to be prepared for. Is she ready for this? Is she knowledgeable about this movement? Is she naively, and is the O'Keefe other lawyers naively going into this, not understanding the lessons from the criminal trial? It wasn't that Hank Brennan didn't make good arguments, or it's that the jury was touched by this innocence fraud campaign. The foreman was looking to make deals and make money, get an agent. Everybody wants a bit of that innocence fraud loot. This is a subject that is my interest, that I know a lot about. If Bibi Fell wants to talk to me, if Mark Diller wants to talk to me, any of the O'Keefe family lawyers want to talk to me, I'm more than happy to share my knowledge about this. But to go into this and think, well, we just need a more experienced lawyer. Hank Brennan taught law. Wasn't that he lacked experience? It's just like, I feel like we're seeing another Hank Brennan again, like another really experienced lawyer coming into this, who's really polished, who really knows the law, who's going to just think that is going to naively pick a jury, or naively think that the jurors aren't going to be touched by this innocence fraud, and not be ready to fight the fraud itself in court. I was really happy to hear Mark Diller talk about Turtle Boy, he called it a propaganda campaign. Whatever you want to call it. Innocence fraud campaign, propaganda campaign. Those were all, he brought that up in court as an argument. You have to fight it head on. You can't shy away from it and think, well, I'm just going to argue the facts of the case. I don't think it's going to work in this case. The positive thing is Karen Reed, if she takes the stand and she takes the fifth, the jurors can make can see that as a admission of guilt. So she's got to talk. She can't say that she's taking the fifth because, and even if I don't even know if she could take the fifth really, because she's already been criminally prosecuted. But maybe around issues of she doesn't get any charges around Turtle Boy, those questions maybe. But the majority of, I don't know if even the fifth would be applicable, but okay. So here's Bibi Fell talking about her beauty secrets and herself. Take a listen.
Oh, young.
Well, she is.
You look so young. I mean, tell us what night creams you're using or what you're eating.
Here's what it is. TGIF. Thank goodness I'm Filipino. I owe it all to my mother.
Genes. It has to go with genes. So lucky. So how many years have you been practicing law?
I've been practicing since 2004. So going on, touching 20 years almost.
That's incredible.
And Bibi, why did you want to be a lawyer?
So I have wanted to be a lawyer since I was 4 years old. And, I've put some thought into that. Like, what does a 4-year-old know about the practice of law? Well, my dad was a lawyer. I had uncles who were lawyers, and my grandfather was a lawyer. But really what it was is that I saw my dad get up in the morning with a spring in his step, go to work, come home, and be excited about what he did. I mean, I knew he was passionate about whatever lawyers did. He was passionate about it, and he was well respected in the community. And so it was his energy that really drew me to the practice.
That's incredible. So do you kind of persuade your daughters to be lawyers too?
I actually don't. So I love what I do. I mean, I'm one of those people who's going to practice until someone has to pull me out of the courtroom drooling and say, Bibi, it's time. I love what I do, but I think
Jeannie knows what you're talking about.
Yeah. Jeannie, you and me together.
For sure.
Isn't this podcast like almost like a Saturday Night Live skit? It's like they took every bit of advice about starting a podcast Like, have a background, have some decoration. They have, like, for those listening on my podcast, they have a pink logo with "She Said What," like, so it's a visual, like in a speech bubble. The set is really loud. They have a little mini Birkin bag on the table. They have Shure microphones. They've taken every little piece of advice on how to make a hit podcast and what viewers like to look at. It's just really funny. Very kind of over the top reactions to the guests' answers, just kind of wild.
I think it's one of those professions that you have to have a heart for it. I see people who love the law and never want to leave and are passionate and great at what they do. And then you see the opposite end of the spectrum. People who got into the law for the wrong reasons, or, it wasn't what they thought it would be. And it's a slog. It's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. It does pull you away from your family.
She's right. There's like a high rate of ending it all, lawyers ending it all, of getting into substances, they have a lot of problems, mental health crises. A lot of people start it and realize they hate it and quit. I think it certainly has a reputation for being a profession with the most unhappy people in it. I'll never forget. I think I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. When I was a little girl, like my young teens, I was in England and we went out to dinner with my family, and the waitress said, it was at a hotel, when I think they believed that this place was a huge place, but they also had a hotel upstairs. So they had a law. The waitress said, "Oh, the law. We just had a law conference here. We've never sent back so many plates of food ever." Just these like unhappy people. The food's too cold. It's too hot. I know my rights around my dinner. So, I mean, you certainly have a reputation for being difficult. Lawyers have a reputation for being difficult people to deal with. I happen to love having lawyers on as guests because they're great talkers and they express themselves so well. And I find them interesting. I like to learn about especially their strategies and their techniques and stuff and how they view things. I've had a bunch of lawyers on as guests. Another interesting thing about Bibi is that she went through, there's some things that shows that she has real strength. Her daughter, so she has 3 daughters. Her eldest, I think at this time was 18. She may be 20 or 21 now. But one of her younger daughters was diagnosed with cancer, like a very serious form of cancer. And she talks about it in this interview. I just wanted to share it. I thought that might be really helpful. Just in her personal relationship with the O'Keeffes, but we saw with her personal relationship with that Hank Brennan had a great relationship with the O'Keeffes, and that wasn't so helpful. I think it's hold on one second. And the other interesting thing is that she married, actually, I'm going to go backwards into this. So she ended up marrying her daughter's, let me read this to you. Her daughter's doctor. So, and the New York Times covered her wedding. She's been married 3 times. As Mae West once said, wedding bells must sound like an alarm clock to her. A fleece zip-up that warmed her heart. Bibi Fell invited Dr. Jim Geller out for a drink in San Diego one chilly evening. A year earlier, his pediatric liver team saved her daughter's life. So there they are at their wedding. Does everybody see that? She's holding up a pretty big, big diamond there in her wedding dress. I believe this is in Hawaii. Her mother lives in Hawaii. Dr. James Ian Geller snapped up a photo of a glass of beer, the beach, and a Cincinnati Bengals Kansas City Chiefs football game on TV. The evening he arrived at La Jolla Shores Hotel in La Jolla, California in February 2022 and posted it on Facebook. "This is the way to watch the game," he wrote alongside the photo, which caught Bibianne Uchinko Fell's attention instantly. Starting the next day, Dr. Geller, 55, a pediatric oncologist specializing in liver and kidney tumors, would host a 3-day national pediatric tumor conference at the hotel. A year earlier, he led a pediatric liver team that saved Ms. Fell's young daughter's life at Cincinnati Children's Hospital in Ohio, where he was a clinician and researcher, and until recently conducted research remotely. Her daughter at age 4 was diagnosed with a high-risk liver cancer and has been cancer-free for 4 years. Ms. Fell, 45, who goes by BB, also has 2 teenage daughters, all from previous marriages. "He's in my city. What are the chances?" Ms. Fell, who lives in San Diego County, recalled thinking, and invited him out for a glass of wine via text. Dr. Geller, who grew up in Merrick, New York, also has 3 children and now works part-time as a clinician and researcher at Rady Children's Hospital in San Diego. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in chemistry from Dartmouth, that's where my grandfather went, and received a medical degree from Tel Aviv University in Israel. "I thought he was brilliant, compassionate, and really making a lot of difference to kids worldwide," said Ms. Fell, who separated 6 months earlier from her husband. Their marriage ended in divorce, as did a previous marriage. On his 3rd day in La Jolla, Dr. Geller texted to say he was free this evening. "Was this a parent who wants to say thank you or talk about research or something else?" Dr. Geller recalled thinking. He had been on the verge of a separation himself, and the next month moved into an apartment in Cincinnati. Ms. Fell, a lawyer who runs a personal injury law practice, received a law degree, magna cum laude, from University of San Diego Law School, where she's an adjunct professor teaching trial advocacy, very much like Hank Brennan, right? She's also had a big case, and we'll talk about that in a second. But she graduated cum laude with a bachelor's degree in political science from University of California, San Diego. "I didn't know if it was a date. I didn't know what it was. Over the next 3 hours, wine turned into dinner on the rooftop deck of George's at the Cove, overlooking La Jolla Cove and the Pacific Ocean, where it was so chilly and windy that he gave her his Patagonia black fleece zip-up to warm up. I was enjoying myself and I didn't want it to end," she said. "I ordered a butterscotch gooey cake thing to prolong the meal." There they are dancing. Pretty dress. By the time she arrived home, he had sent her a long text. "It gave me butterflies," Ms. Fell said. A few days later, they began texting and then spent the next 5 or 6 weeks getting to know each other almost daily on the phone. "I didn't know how it would work. So many states away. I was willing to play it out. So was he, and in March he drove 12 hours from Cincinnati That's a determined man. For their first date in New Orleans, where Miss Fell was chairing a 2-day conference of women trial lawyers. They had a quick first kiss hello, and after joining her for a conference dinner that evening, one of her closest friends, whom she described as, quote, one of the most vicious trial lawyers in the country, grilled him. I already fell in love with him, she said, and before they parted ways, he gave her the fleece Patagonia zip up from their first evening together. They then spoke multiple times a day and saw each other at least once a month somewhere in the world, including conferences in New York, Marseille, France, and British Columbia, Canada. Distance, kids, he said. Nothing about it was going to be easy, but it definitely felt right. In February 2023, as the sun set and they had danced to songs by Jason Mraz, Dr. Geller proposed at his lake house in Norris Lake, Tennessee, near Knoxville. Their divorces had been finalized a few weeks earlier. In early spring 2024, he officially moved into her house in North County, San Diego, nicknamed Dorm North, since there are 6 children and nephew now living there come and go and sometimes hang out together. On June 20th, the busy couple got around to a no-frills legal ceremony by Arlene Lozano, a clerk at the San Diego County Clerk's Office in San Diego. We got the big pieces in place, she said, when they exchanged vows and wedding celebrations 6 months earlier at Kamiya Estates, a waterfront venue in Oahu, Hawaii, before 35 guests. That sunny afternoon, amid Hawaiian breezes, guests enjoyed a menu prepared by Chai Chawarski, known as Chef Chai, and the bride's mother, who lives in Hawaii, danced a hulu as a gift to the couple. So there's that. So here she is talking about it, how she found him after a period of a really difficult period. This is, let me just give, if you want to look at all these things yourself, links in the description of this episode in the show notes.
A few months ago. Would you mind reading it to us?
So I said,
I cut that off a little tight, but she's asking Bibi to read her Facebook post.
Want to hear a story? As many of you know, over the last 18 months, I've had a series of challenges. I'll be honest, there were moments when I wondered whether the hits would ever stop coming. But I kept putting one foot in front of the other, hoping that darkness would be followed by dawn. Well, here's the story part. When we were in Cincinnati for Maddie's treatment, we met a kind and brilliant man who, despite his accomplishments, was bathed in humility. Jim Geller impressed me immediately. In an interesting twist, almost a year after...
We met a kind man. Was there more than one of her? Who did? Oh, because it's her and her kids. It's her and her kid. Okay. That's why. I was like, which does she contain? I know she contains multitudes, but...
After I left Cincinnati, our paths crossed again. Getting to know this amazing man has been a silver lining to be envied by all other silver linings. Today, in France, we celebrate a new chapter. To brighter days, never giving up hope, and finding love where you least expect it. Cheers.
I was so happy when I read that. And now we're starting at the end, but let's talk about those challenges.
Sure. So I didn't perceive myself as someone with challenges. I would say about 18 months ago, I felt like I had the perfect life. There were literally days that I woke up and I was like, I'm so happy. I wouldn't want to change anything about where I am in life in this moment in time. And on January 18th of 2021, all of that changed dramatically. So I woke up in the morning and I took 2 of my daughters, my 15-year-old and then my youngest, to see their pediatrician for just a normal well baby checkup. And when he put his hand on her tummy, I saw his face drop and he kept kind of feeling around and I could just sense something like in the room, the whole room changed. And he looked over at me and he said, "There's an issue. I feel something here. It's a mass. It's very large." And then honestly, I don't know what he said after that.
That's like every mom's worst nightmare.
Yeah. It felt like the world was just spinning and I had to stop him mid-sentence and say, "I'm sorry. I'm not listening to anything you're saying right now. I'm just trying to decide how much to panic."
Yeah, I mean, you were processing.
Yeah.
It must have been awful. And,
yeah.
And then what happened?
I mean, this just reminds me of when Peggy O'Keefe was told about John O'Keefe. He was found in the snow, and then she goes to the hospital, and as she's being brought into the room to be told he's dead, Karen Reed is yelling, "Is he dead, Peg? Is he dead?" And she's like, why is she there? You could tell. Why is she here? Like, what is she doing here? I think Peg O'Keefe figured out Karen Reed I think she was hip to Karen. She's like, you just left him? You just left him, Karen? So I think that bodes well to them having a good relationship. Please, someone reach out to me. This is like just such a unusual situation. These lawyers go in overconfident, thinking, well, the facts are overwhelming. No lawyer's the Barb evidence is much lower. No jury's going to buy a conspiracy. But they do. They do buy a conspiracy. Or they don't care. They just they hate the police. They want to let Karen off. They want to ignore it. They don't want to follow the evidence. They get bamboozled by the defense experts. And mostly they get fooled by Karen Reed's campaign. I mean, every lawyer, looks at these like a one-off. It's not a one-off. It's like a tsunami of innocence fraud coming into it's not just in America either. It's worldwide. It's just in America we have these civil courts that make these multi-million-dollar judgments. And so she's been through that. Very difficult kind of cancer. Daughter's still living. She made it through. But she's most famous for this judgment, $105 million that she was awarded to a cancer patient for fraudulent treatment. A jury, okay? And a jury awarded Dawn Calley $105 million, $356,000, holding self-proclaimed cancer expert Robert Young responsible for fraudulently and negligently representing cancer treatments that led to her cancer's progression. Calley had been diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer and was desperately in search of answers. I'm going to get to her when she sought the cure of young PH miracle living. I think I have her. I have so many things open. This is the problem when I open so many things. Let me boot some things out that I've dealt with. Oh. Here's her describing, this is a case that she's famous for. Like every lawyer wants to win these big, multi-million-dollar payouts. Hence, one of the reasons why innocence fraud is so big is that after they get out by hook or by crook, so they overturn their murder conviction, they go to our civil courts and they say they want compensation for being wrongfully convicted. And Karen Reed looks like she's going to do some of these kind of lawsuits for her rights being violated, et cetera, et cetera. We still haven't seen any paperwork regarding that. So I don't know if that was just to hype up her following. I would think that these lawyers are hungry for money. That we're going to see them, but who knows? So here she is on the Synergy Trial Lawyer podcast. Take a listen to how she describes the case.
The medical fraud case that you handled, which resulted in that $105 million verdict. It seems like an incredibly crazy set of facts and story. Could you briefly, for our listeners, highlight a couple of the important points about your client and what had happened in that case?
Sure. So my client was Don Cali, and the defendant was Robert Young. Robert Young is somebody who got a mail-in, science degree and held himself out to be a doctor. He actually called himself a doctor. He was not licensed. And he made his money by defrauding people who are in the most...
That's interesting. She went against someone who called himself a doctor, but wasn't a doctor. Almost like someone who might have been a propagandist for Karen Reed. Someone who might have sold her innocence fraud tale to the public. Almost like that. Here's a little comparison.
Vulnerable position that they'll ever be in their entire lives. People who have gotten a cancer diagnosis, or their family members who have a cancer diagnosis. And most of his victims had been told that they were terminal and that there was no traditional medical treatment available left to them. And so he concocted a theory that is not based on any science to sell smoothies and exercise regimens. And ultimately, for those who could afford it, he would charge them $3,000 a night to come and stay at his ranch in San Diego, where he would give them a diet that was alkaline. And
So this gave me hope, because he was like, it sounds like a cult leader, frankly. But did she have a jury and was she also fighting his supporters and a PR offensive that tainted the jury pool? That's would be a really good experience if that had happened in this case, but it doesn't look like it. It's when we like in the criminal trial, when Hank Brennan decided not to use nervous trooper Paul, who ended up being correct about everything, by the way, or most things, and hire for a lot of money an expert, Welsher. He thought that would be better to sell the jury on, but he lost. He lost a lot because, Trooper Paul gets paid, doesn't get paid whether he testifies. He's not getting paid to testify. Welsher is. So now you have two paid experts going up against each other instead of an expert for the state who gets paid his, police salary for just doing his job, who's just doing his job, who has no financial incentive to testify in any sort of way, and up against, these paid experts who are communicating on Signal and are lying on the stand about being paid and being neutral. I mean, you have and deleting all their text messages and emails before trial. And only one information from the defense never asked the Commonwealth for for any information to do their quote unquote experiments. Those are the great scientists, quote unquote, in this case. Talking about the ARCA witnesses. But you lose something. So you lose something when you bring in like gangbuster, big, female, glamazon attorney. So what, you have 7 lawyers up against 3? I hope, I hope she fills in some holes, for the, if there are holes in the knowledge of wrongful death cases for Diller, I hope she fills them in. Mark Diller, I hope she fills them in. But I would suggest she dress down for court. I know everyone is saying like, oh, it's going to be so terrible for Karen Read to be cross-examined by a woman better looking than herself. She'll go crazy. I don't think Karen Read's I don't think much bothers Karen Read. I think all those stories we heard in trial was her way of controlling John O'Keefe. I don't think she's really bothered by much. I don't think much gets under her skin. I mean, the thing about psychopaths is they're generally steely and cool and lack a real full emotional life. By the way, tonight is a double header. So after this, at 9, I'm going on Patreon. I'm doing my first Patreon live for my Patreon supporters. We're going to be going over this new video of Donna Adelson breakdown after her verdict. We're going to look at it together. We can talk a little bit about that case ahead of the sentencing. Donna's being sentenced on Monday. I'll be covering it on this channel for all those interested. So for all my Patreon supporters and people who've been thinking about becoming a Patreon supporter, link is in the description of this episode. Supports, I think it starts at less than a Starbucks cappuccino. I think it's like for something a month. I think it starts at. And you get access to a whole bunch of stuff that's not available on my channel.
What's particularly horrible about this man is, I don't necessarily think it's bad to give somebody hope, right? And I don't think that a diet of fruits and vegetables is bad. But what he did was he took it to an extreme where he was actually torturing people. So he would tell them, don't go to your medical doctor because they're going to give you things that are going to kill you. Don't talk to your family because they don't understand and they're going to push you into doing treatments that are going to kill you. Don't take your pain medicine because your pain medicine will result in your body not being alkaline and then your cancer is going to flourish. If it was going poorly.
I mean, that might give Bibi Fell some understanding of coercive control and the control that Karen had over John. Having gone up against this, sounds like a cult leader to me, but my red flags go up when she's saying like a diet of fruit and vegetables isn't bad. Like, it's not what it is. The issue is the control he had over his patients, that he was a fraud and that his treatment didn't work. I mean, it's like, and the treatment was extremely expensive. Let's take a look at it. Here's the woman who got the $105 million payout. And at the time, he also was tried criminally. So my question is did this woman ever see anything close to $105 million in this case? Because you'll see he's in prison now.
We're hearing from a victim of the man accused of faking his medical credentials and treating cancer patients with junk science. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Marcella Lee. That victim is speaking with us just days before the accused, Robert Young, heads back to court to face criminal charges after being charged again with treating people without a medical license. CBS 8's Anna Laurel shares the story of a cancer patient who describes what happened to her when she put her trust in Young.
I spoke with Dawn Kelly earlier today. She says she hopes her story keeps people from believing Robert Young. She says he preys on people with terminal illnesses because they will do anything to try to live.
I'm alive, and I know had I continued on, I would not be here right now.
Dawn Kelly was 33 when she was diagnosed with breast cancer.
It was just my world.
So this was stage 1 breast cancer too. So it sounded like by the time she was done with treatment with this doctor, it was at least stage 3, stage 4. This doctor, I'm sorry. See how powerful the word doctor is? How powerful words are? This guy wasn't a doctor, this fraud, excuse me, this non-treatment with this fraud. Her cancer had already progressed so far.
The world was collapsing.
She had a lumpectomy, but was told she faced lengthy treatments. Looking for options, she found Robert Young, the creator of the pH Miracle Diet. He claims his diet can treat and cure cancer and other terminal diseases.
My cancer is really aggressive. It's an aggressive form of breast cancer. And he said it doesn't matter as long as you do this diet.
She went to his luxury ranch in Valley Center to learn more about these treatments and his diet that include pumping patients with IVs of baking soda.
And paying $2,000 to $5,000 a day, you know, depending on how many IVs you were getting.
But Dawn's cancer returned.
And he's saying, I don't care about the numbers. I don't care if you 2 or 3 more tumors pop up. This is what happens. It gets worse before it gets better.
And it did get worse. But 6 years after her first diagnosis, Dawn finally went to an oncologist.
It's not just right here. It's everywhere. It's all up and down your spine. It's in your chest. It's in your nodes.
Dawn started to realize who she was dealing with. In 2017, Young served prison time for practicing medicine without a license. In court, he admitted he did not have any post-high school educational degrees from any accredited schools.
And I realized that he knew nothing.
See, you know, and I was listening to the Karen Reed supporters talk about the Turtle Boy taping Karen Reed without her knowledge or consent scandal and lying about it to all his not only lying about it, but accusing the people who were breaking that story of being liars with no receipts, that knew nothing, that he just denied. And it was Spaces on X. I was listening to it, and it was like listening to people come out of a cult. Like they could get it about halfway that now Turtle Boy was not trustworthy, but Turtle Boy sold you the story, Karen Reed's story, but they're going to still support Karen Reed. He's still a great journalist. They still can't get it that he fabricated narratives for years for Karen Reed. They can't get that this is all a house of cards, because you don't want to think that the money that you've donated, the time that you've given, and that you've been fooled. Like, it's hard to admit that you've been fooled. And that's why I always say that Karen Reed supporters are going to be the last ones to know that they've been fooled. But this is like such a powerful movement. And it's just the majority of true crime media, in order to be popular, if they don't push one fraud, they feel they have to push another. I got into it. So, those are not my allies. If I agree with you on one case, you're not my ally. If you're pushing innocence fraud, you are not an ally of mine, of any sort. If you're pushing false narratives for killers, you are not an ally of mine. when you're part of the problem. And like I said, these narratives, these fake, wrongfully convicted narratives, wrongfully accused narratives, police tunnel vision, planted evidence, kangaroo court narratives are like crack for, certainly in America. Our media cannot produce enough documentaries with wrongfully convicted killers. It doesn't matter how many times it's been done, how many other media has been produced like it. There's always money to be made in pushing this fake narrative, fraud out for the worst of our society, the most evil, heartless human beings of our society, the people that victimize other people, people that kill. I mean, it used to be killers didn't get much. Killers, it was generally considered like a taboo to kill people. Not so much anymore, and especially cops. I mean, it's amazing that I'm surprised and not surprised how many people they've brought into this. I mean, it's been, it comes on the back of decades of a war on the police. But I would say it would be a much harder innocence fraud campaign to spin like maybe 40, 50 years ago.
And that no
A campaign with an accused cop killer, I would think it would be harder to spin 40 or 50 years ago than now. Now it comes on the back of so much of the, like I said, war on the police. So this is this woman's story. She got $105 million. You saw him in court. Did everybody see him in court? This dude. Here he is. So in 2017,
Young served prison time for practicing medicine without a license. In court, he admitted he did not have any post-high school educational degrees from any accredited schools.
And I realized that he knew nothing and that no one had survived.
In 2018, a jury awarded Don $100 million against Young. And next week, Young will be back in court, again accused of doing the same thing he did to Don and others.
He was a con man. He was a narcissist.
Sounds like someone else we know. It's a little bit like Karen Reed herself. So she's going up against another con man and con woman. But she's also going up against organized crime. That's what it is. That is what innocence fraud is. Organized crime. Can Bibi Fell understand it? Is she brave enough? Is she willing to think outside the box enough to beat this? I don't know. A Court TV, everybody said it was great. She's a great lawyer. Karen Reed's lawyers aren't all that great in court. They're doing something else. So if they were great lawyers, they wouldn't have to commit fraud, innocence fraud, right? They wouldn't need an innocence fraud campaign. They wouldn't need Turtle Boy. They wouldn't need any of those things if they were really great lawyers. They would just argue the law. This is something else she's up against. So here's the talking heads on Court TV talking about it. Take a listen.
Hey, Jennifer, what does this move the ball for the O'Keefe's lawsuit against Karen Reed?
Well, I think the best thing about Bibi is she brings all of this experience and particular expertise in this area of wrongful death. And that's what the O'Keefes needed. Listen, she has gotten so many suits settled and won huge verdicts in court. So she's a good litigator. Specifically, I note a $5 million judgment that was rendered after a child was hit on a bike. I think that those facts kind of closely mimic this. I look for Bibi to come in like a firestorm.
Joe Tabarino, this is a building up. You've got Alan Jackson hanging on with Karen Reed on the civil.
Well, Hank Brennan came in as a firestorm at times, but he walked out with his tail between his legs. I mean, you know, this is something else. I mean, you expect to win just on the facts. Like, it seems like a pretty easy case of fraud to win, you know? Woman been harmed, went through treatment, started at stage 1, ended at like stage 4. And no one's been helped by his treatment ever in the history of his, not even with like placebo effect, according to that woman. That seems like her most famous judgment seems like a pretty easy case to win. I'm not convinced that they might be better without her. But they have to look at this outside of the box. This is not a case that they can just be like, oh, we'll just pick a jury and we'll try it in court. I think they might be better to be spent really sussing out the jury, getting experts who can do background checks on the jury as much as they're allowed. And not get free Karen readers on the jury or people who've been really exposed to this team, this innocence fraud campaign. But 2 lawyers up against 7 is a little different than 3 lawyers up against 7. Still the underdog, but Glamazon Bibi, super lawyer, I don't know. Dress down, baby, dress down. Dress down. I know you want to look good on camera, but dress down. These are my advice.
Case as well, helping that team out. Now you're seeing the O'Keefes also bolstering their forces, to Jennifer's point. And Bibi's is a good litigator. It's not, she's not a civil attorney that's afraid to go into a courtroom. She will fight it all the way to the end with a jury, and looks like that's where this thing's going.
Yes, and whoever the O'Keefes hire, they've got a really good chance of winning this case for 3 reasons. Number 1 is less burden of proof. They only have to prove preponderance that Ms. Reed killed Mr. O'Keefe. Preponderance means more likely than not. Number 2, Ms. Reed will testify because in the civil case, she won the criminal. She doesn't have a right against, self-incrimination. So she could be called to testify at trial. She could be deposed. And number 3, you're going to have less outside.
Actually, I just see the conversation going on in the chat about Lindsay having a lawyer. That's a more complicated, because the reason she didn't answer you, Maestro, is it's a more complicated answer. And I can talk about it. But funds have been spent on lawyers, I can tell you that. She hasn't always been doing it alone. She's doing an impressive job doing it alone. But it's a complicated situation altogether. I trust Lindsay Gattani more than I trust Aiden Carney, that's for sure.
Influences. I don't think in this civil process you're going to have a lot of outside influences like, the Turtle Boy factor and everybody else who was outside of the courthouse. I just don't see that happening in the civil case. So overall, whoever the O'Keefes hire, they've got a really good shot at winning the civil case.
I don't know about that, Joe. I don't know that there's not going to be an army of people outside anywhere where Karen Reed is, because for whatever reason, people are just all in. David Bruno, your thoughts on the addition?
Right? Because he knows this fraud. I don't know who this host is, but good on him. That's my point. He's making my point for me. That's my point. It's like, oh, we're up against this fraud. We're going to get a lawyer. Another resource can be helpful. But unless you confront the fraud, it's not going to. Come talk to me. Mark Diller, come talk to me. Bibi, come talk to me. I do know this fraud. I'm not a lawyer, but I do know this fraud. I've been studying it for over 10 years now. This is my area of interest and expertise. come talk to me. It's much better to see. There's so many different elements, but you're up against. So any fraud, let me put it this way. So any fraud is making something look like something it's not. Okay? So it usually has a shiny surface. If you notice that Karen Reed's lawyers are all really fit. Did you notice that? She has a polished, good-looking team. And their suits are always really expensive. And that they have their own media person. They're going to make things as slick as possible. So you have to combat them and not be slick. Be truthful. Stick to every minute fact and tell the story in minutia from beginning to end with witnesses. It's not, if you have two slick presentations, it's hard to tell who's the slick person and who's the truthful person. I'm not saying don't put on a good court case, but slickness is not helpful. Performance is not helpful. Just try the case. Stick to the facts of the case. And bring out the facts that haven't been put in the public domain. There's a lot that hasn't been put in the public domain. So what's on Karen's phone didn't come out. Fight to get that stuff out there. Talk about the plumber. Talk about Karen's lies and Karen's manipulation. Talk about this in terms of a DV case. I'm going to be talking more, at least I hope so, on this channel about Karen Reed and her isolating John before she clipped him with her car 24 miles an hour in reverse, her foot 75% on the gas pedal. But he's right. He's like, you think you're going to win this because you have a super lawyer and it's just going to be in court. The public comes into the court. I mean, it wouldn't matter if it were just a normal court case, if you had a huge group outside, because the jury's not supposed to acknowledge what they read outside influences. But our courts don't work in a vacuum. And he knows that. This host knows that.
Of Bibi to the O'Keefe team.
Yeah, I'm with Joe on this one. I think the plaintiffs are in a strong position just because of the difference of the burden of proof. The best example of that is the OJ case, right? He was acquitted on the criminal. He was found liable in the civil. And that's the difference in the burden of proof. For the plaintiffs in the case in O'Keefe's family, they really need someone to manage the circus. I mean, this has been a circus, to say the least, honestly,
And he's trying to talk. He's going to call it a circus. He's talking about the innocence fraud campaign again. Burden of proof is a great thing, that it's a lower burden of proof, but I don't think burden of proof was the problem. How did the defense offer any real alternate theory as to what happened that night? Real theory that matched the facts of the case. I mean, if Karen Reed's car really didn't hit John O'Keefe, how did microscopic pieces of his taillight end up in his shirt? How do you plant microscopic pieces? Look at the timeline. There's no time to plant pieces. Other elements. But bring in the whole relationship. Bring in the Karen Reed's own personality and the way she kept power and control in that relationship by lying, by making up fake things like plumbers, that she has to wait for her broken pipe, Richie the plumber, the toilet seat, her 10 surgeries she had for her non-existent colon cancer. Like, that was read in court, but like never really dealt with. Just sort of like, Karen Reed is a massive liar. I know. I liked what Hank Brennan did with bringing in her own clips. Thought that was helpful, but not helpful enough, clearly.
Turtle Boy, and then the allegations about law enforcement misconduct and all the things. So I think what Bibi brings, at least to the team, is the ability to sort of manage the chaos, because that's exactly what's happening here. It happened in the criminal case. We could expect it again in the civil case. And I think that it's good that she's added, but I think that they are already in a very good position in a different venue.
Reed's team may have picked up a small victory after the judge in this case dismissed a claim of emotional distress from John O'Keefe's niece. Here's some portion of that argument from the plaintiff's attorney.
Karen Reed plots, she fabricates a conspiracy, she launches a public campaign of disinformation, and she involves a blogger named Turtle Boy. She leaks not for public information through him. She pits her followers against the O'Keefe family, and all the while, Karen knows that the O'Keefe family is also vulnerable, grieving another tragedy in their family. The O'Keefes and Kaylee suffer severe emotional distress. It's more than anguish and more than grief, and it is not overlapping with the wrongful death statute.
Although the judge agreed to dismiss that claim, he did rule that other claims of reckless or intentional infliction of emotional distress can stand, pointing to Reed's narrative. The parties are due back in court in November. No trial date's been set. So we're asking which side has an advantage so far.
I think all those facts can come into the charge that still stands. I mean, bring it in. Bring Turtle Boy in.
Jennifer, it is really early in the civil process. When you factor in the Reed team's threat, if you will, that they are going to be launching lawsuits against Proctor et al., and they want them to be enveloped into this case. The judge has to decide on that. I mean, the deadline for discovery isn't until December of next year. This is not going to trial anytime soon, but at this early juncture, this is the question, so let's answer it. Who does have an advantage at this point?
Well, the facts would tell you, based on this new burden of proof in the civil, as Joe has discussed and David discussed, it's so much lower. So for that reason alone, I believe the O'Keefes have the advantage. The facts absolutely support that he was hit by the car, that he was hit by Karen Reed, but the burden has to be met, and this one is much lower. So for that reason, they have the advantage at this point.
Joe? You agree?
Well, yeah, like I said before, I think they do have the advantage. And, David mentioned about the OJ case, and that is the quintessential example of somebody winning in the criminal side, not guilty, but losing in the civil side. And what was a determining factor in that case? OJ had to testify, and he was horrible. And the same thing's going to happen here. Karen Reed will have to testify in the civil case. Now,
But if these jurors are all loving her, it doesn't matter what comes out of her mouth. I mean, we're all listening. We're like, oh. They don't hear it. They hear the words. They don't hear it. All they see is innocence. So it depends how they've been touched. But she's not likable in interviews to a Someone who hasn't been touched by the innocence fraud campaign. She's not likable. She can be likable, but not around this topic. She's so hateful of the family. All those things brought out, that will be an advantage.
There's no trial, she'll still be deposed. She'll be under oath, and the plaintiff's attorneys are going to be grilling her left and right. And she's never gone through that before because she didn't testify at her criminal trials. So I still think the plaintiffs will have the upper hand in this.
Just because of the rules of the road, let's talk about if it goes to trial, as you say. Well, the judge sort of gave both sides a pep talk and said, you don't want this to go to trial, people. Take a listen.
The parties also have another way to do this case. They can do it by way of potential resolution. And I mean this sincerely when I say that being a judge for many years, you learn things. And what you learn is that oftentimes litigation is an inartful way to try to resolve parties' disputes. There's alternative dispute resolution, there's mediation, there's all kinds of other avenues that we advance to try to get people what they want, which is resolution of a case. The most important thing, it would seem to me, to any party to this case, is to resolve the uncertainty, right?
David, do you think there's a chance?
Someone said that Karen Reed's insurance will pay this. Is that true? If she loses in this, is it just her insurance? I don't think so. She'd be adding 7 lawyers if it were just her insurance? Or is she adding 7 lawyers because it messes up her Hollywood money and going on writing her second book and producing films about how, mockumentaries about how bad she had it and how badly she was treated? Does anybody know anything about that? Is this insurance money? When you're driving drunk, does insurance really pay?
This thing does settle.
Yeah, see, that judge is doing what judges do. They're trying to get those cases out of their courtroom, and that judge knows exactly what he's getting into. I mean, the trial that we had in the criminal case, the 2 trials, now coming into the civil case, is going to take time. It's going to take court resources. It's going to take a lot for not only that court, but the community to go through another trial. And it's not just that judge. It's not this case. That's what judges do. Judges are trying to resolve, and then if there are disputable issues of fact or law, that's what trials are for. But that's the same thing going on in every single criminal and civil courtroom across the country, trying to resolve cases amicably.
Yeah, and Jennifer, I saw you shaking your head. This isn't going to end anywhere, right? Quickly. No.
Yeah, no way. There is no way. I mean, look at the fact that Alan Jackson is now coming on to bolster the civil side of things. They do not want to lose. They want a full-on 100% victory with this, so they are not going to acquiesce.
No, she's right. That's one thing. Surprise there that I agree with Jennifer Coffindaffer. They're never going to settle this case. Ever, 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 ever. Karen Reed's never going to admit any part in her murder of John O'Keefe. She will go to her grave saying she didn't do it. But this just seems to me, I don't know. I'd like to know more about why and how she was picked. I noticed that she was in Massachusetts for a conference, like a talk. I wonder if Mark Diller or someone close to him heard her. I wonder how she was picked. Exactly. We'll learn more maybe as she does her own interviews, but I'm probably the least. I just have to express my concern and my lack of optimism around this choice. It's not particularly, I think they need to keep thinking outside the box, because this is something else. Like I said, it's organized. You're going up against organized crime. This is organized crime. And it's done in the courtroom. It's done outside the courtroom. And I hope they think of all aspects and how they're going to present the O'Keefe family to the public in the media, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, a lot of things, I think one lawyer there was right, that a lot of things have to be managed, not just in the courtroom, but outside the courtroom. And there's still so much that hasn't been put into the public domain about this story. That's why I keep coming back to it and talking about it. There's a great deal more that needs to be said. So I'll continue talking about it on this channel. One more time, tonight I am going to be on Patreon. Patrons only live, first live episode, 9 o'clock. Looking forward to seeing you all there. We're going to have some fun. Much more upbeat, upbeat topic. Going to talk about Donna Adelson's going to be sentenced. Will she? She has to talk Monday. What is she going to say? I'll be covering it on this channel live, as I always do. But she does have to give some statement. She can say no statement, no comment. But she will be asked to speak. All right. And we'll probably hear more victim impact statements. Or they'll be presented to the court. If they don't get read out loud in court, they will be mailed in to the judge. All right. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks so much for hanging out and listening. Once again, this is a listener-supported channel. I count on all of you to keep this channel going and producing episodes. Hold on one second. One hot minute. That's better. I forgot to plug in my computer. It was about to go dark. Everyone would have wondered what happened to me. Please support the channel. Links are in the description of this episode. Venmo, buy me a coffee, Patreon, and you get a whole host of episodes, including the live episode tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. I will see everyone there, I hope. Links are in the description of this channel. Have a great night, everyone.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment. I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, carry, gin, gin. Like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit. Hit. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I claim.